growing weary of running from room to room, practicing one-tooth insurance-driven dentistry? Then stay tuned for the latest episode of The Lionhearted, where Dr. Stephen Rasner will hand you the blueprint for what many call the gold standard of general practice dentistry.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Steve Rasner, and welcome to the Lionhearted Dentist Podcast. By the way, if you're new to this podcast, we call it that because we're the dentist that refuse to give in, like Lionhearted. That's right, we refuse to give in to toxic insurance, the challenges that go with daily practice today, especially in a general practice. And of course, that would include a pandemic that no one counted on in 2020. Last week, I was thrilled to stumble across an old lecture that I thought was particularly relevant, and I got about halfway through it, and it was called The Fast and Furious Blueprint Recovery for Your Practice. And it was based on a lecture I did in 2013. If you didn't listen to last week's, I would highly recommend you check it out. Because back in 2013, we were just coming off, we were struggling with the Great Recession of 2008. And I did a presentation in Northeast United States. And as I said, I keep all my presentations. I review them from time to time to see if they resonate today with you. And indeed, that one did. And so I'm going to continue that. And here's where I was. I was talking about the pivotal role of your team in creating this special place in your community that everybody knows that you're the best. And you're the best not just because you take abundant CE and you raise the bar significantly high on all the services that you provide in your office. And if they're not at that level, you train to get them at that level. That's a Lionhearted dentist. But it's far more than that. It's all about your team. And toward the end of the podcast last week, I was talking about how certain icons of today's industries like Starbucks, Apple, Southwest Airlines, they're just known for their culture and the atmosphere that it's created when you walk or do business with them. And why can't we be that? And that really is what I've tried to emulate, taking little bits and pieces of the organizational philosophy or the Four Seasons Hotel or the Ritz-Carlton. And not just the glamour and glitz of the venues of such hotels, but again, how they have mastered dealing with people. Think about it, guys. I'm not trying to complicate this. What could be better than you really giving out 5-star clinical skill service? Whether it's a direct restoration you provided, a crown from a lab, implants, dentures even, whatever it is, that you just don't go with the mass. That's not good enough for you. Hell, I remember I used to put restorations in my dentures, obviously on purpose. And I'd maybe make it a class 3 composite on a denture tooth on, I don't know, a little very subtle on the distal of member 10, just to create reality. I positively used to put gold stop inlays on the occlusal stop portions of my upper and lower dentures so they wouldn't wear. I mean, these are all things, I didn't know this. I acquired that in the journey of CE that you're on now and I'm still on. But at the end of the day, I was talking about our team. And I also spoke early in that podcast about goal setting, if you go back and you listen to that. So, I don't know whether you know this or not, but only 3% of people have written goals. Think about that. So 97%, 9.7 of every 10 people don't have a written goal. And for people who do have written goals, it's a known fact, if you look it up in Google, that type of material, that they accomplish 80% more than people who don't have written goals. So it's not a little deal, it's a big deal. And how would that look to you? I swear to you, this is what I used to do. I'm going back quite a ways. I will place implants by, and if you get into researching goals, it's important for you to be very specific. It's like saying, the difference between saying, I want to lose weight in the next 3 months versus I will lose 10 pounds by January the 20th. I will place implants by such and such. I will add an additional hygiene day in my office. That's an easy one to do. I covered that a couple podcasts ago. Schedule it out 90 days from now. I'm not kidding. It is that simple. And why is that a factor, by the way? Why would I even bring that up? I do think that hygiene is one of the more predictable, profitable centers in your whole practice. And naturally, it's a funnel for work to come out to you. So yes, that's a big important thing. I remember going years having 2 hygienists and not even thinking ever. It just didn't occur to me about having a 3rd schedule. And there are downfalls to having 3 hygienists at once. It is a little consuming if you're trying to get things done as a clinician. But there are ways around having 3 or certainly 2 that you can still be efficient in your clinical requirements in a given day. But, if you think about it, if you have a full hygiene schedule, that schedule will be absolutely profitable. Now, why is that? Well, it's because there are no redos. No one listening right now tracks how many visits an implant/crown case takes. How about if the implant fails? How about if the crown isn't the right contour or shade even? That just doesn't happen in hygiene. And because of that, I am very strict about who gets what hygiene appointments. Remember, I spoke a lot about designing a protocol book, what to do when in our practices. One of the protocol book is in the opening hygiene appointment. What was that about? The opening hygiene protocol states that the only person that will get an opening day hygiene appointment, meaning whenever you start, is it 9 o'clock? Is it 8 o'clock? That has to be a person that's never broken an appointment in your office before. Why is that? Because people that break one appointment, I am telling you, look me in the eye, learn a lesson, they'll break a second one at some point. I'm not kidding. I don't know why it works that way, but it just does. People that think it's okay to just change their dental appointment or other appointments, justify it in their mind and make reasons that make sense to them. And the bottom line is you lose an hour. Does that change and cripple your practice, and ruin your week? No. But why not institute protocols or policy, whatever you want to call it, that minimize those type of bumps? And you can do that. Now, if you're in an early practice and you don't have abundant patients to do that, and we never tell the patient we're not going to give him the opening appointment because they broke. We don't want to insult people. We want to run an effective business. So we'll say, how about the 9 o'clock or at 10 o'clock? Does that work for you? And to be honest with you, if it's said in the right tone, it's almost always worked. And I used to also write goals for personal goals. I will take the family to blank and blank on such a date. I will take these type of courses, and I would just finish it. That's how I was. I would sign up for the course and pay for it so I wouldn't break it. It's a big difference between saying, I'll take a spear course this spring of 2021. That's kind of a specific goal. It's much more specific if you signed up for it and paid for it. That's just the truth. So remember this. This is to all of you. I don't know if staff members listen to my podcast. I've been told they do. So this statement goes to all of you. Quit waiting for your kids to leave home, for the right person in your life to show up, for clearer instructions, for the absence of risk. All these things are just tools used by procrastinators. You got one life. Remember why we're talking. Remember why we're talking. I am trying to share with those of you that are interested a lifetime of lessons and mistakes that I made that will help you. I remember reading this stuff in books that I bought, and look, I'm probably not as geeked up as I used to be about reading how to master time, efficiency, and success. And you guys, in a way, are bringing me back to it, so I thank you. Quite honestly, you are. Me getting into the podcast thing, and where I'm going right now, honestly, that I kind of forgot about, is I am looking. I know I started with this one presentation that I gave 7 years ago, but I like it. I feel like I'm more organized, and it's so easy to go off the track. I got to be honest with you, a lot of people liked my presentations over the years, so you're kind of getting them through the podcast, at least for now. So let's summarize to say this about the staff. What do we want? It's your job to think about what you have. I don't know what you have. Are they fully engaged? For real. It's your front desk or your hygiene team, the assistants. I would suspect, depending on the size of your team, that some of them are not fully engaged, meaning they would easily leave you if a better opportunity came around. Fully engaged is hard to find for an entire team. Are they competent at what they do? In my history, it's been minor when I've had hygienists who I wouldn't say were competent. Abundant clinical dental assistants have not been competent. What good does it do if somebody responds to an advertisement that you put in for a dental assistant that's worked with a dentist for 25 years that didn't let them do anything? There are dentists like that. And she puts on her resume, I have 25 years experience of doing nothing, of suctioning. So, yeah, competency is really hard to find. Confidence would be important. I think talent. I think attitude outweighs all of it if they have some level of teachable talent. And are they interested? I mean, that is huge. I mean, listen, I'm talking to my colleagues right now. There's a bunch of us. I doubt that they're listening to this podcast or any other podcast. There's a bunch of us that aren't even interested. That are going through the motions. So you don't think that can apply to building the rest of your team? Of course it can. But if I could choose just one principle, like somebody said, you got one line to give this particular practice, what will help them the most, the longest? And it would be the building and doing the things that would result in building relationships in your office. And quite honestly, I believe that comes way more from your team than it does from you, doctor. Like, you're the glue that puts it all together. I mean, if they're amazing, but your crowns fall out, they get recurrent decay in 24 months under a crown you did, your root canals end up having to be referred to a specialist. Even if you covered the fee, they still have to have it retreated. If your work fails more than industry standards, or even just seems to fail a lot, then everything I'm talking about your team takes a very, very distant back seat. There's a lot of cool things to do. My front desk is encouraged to have conversation, meaningful conversation, and timely conversation. If somebody's in a hurry, then no, I don't want them asking a bunch of questions about their recent vacation, but they know that stuff. and I don't know it, your staff will only do what they think you think is important. So yeah, if there's time checking out, I do hear Shelby, who's concierge right now at my front desk that I've had for just a short 3 years, talk about the interest of the patient, something they're doing that I don't know anything about, by the way, their hobbies, their current events. And it's nothing for us. And again, I can't overemphasize that what I'm saying means nothing if your clinical work isn't up to snuff. But if your clinical work was amazing and you had a 0 personality front desk or a 0 personality hygienist, you'll lose that patient or could lose the patient. I'm serious. And we have a big basket of patient tokens, including lip balm, hand sanitizers today. That's huge. Pocket calendars, all kinds of things that they're free to give, which is part of the experience. I mean it. Things that we would never say, that my staff knows I never want them to say, would be, I can't. We don't. We're closed. I'll have to ask. I can't. We don't. We're closed. I'll have to ask. Think about that for a minute. How good does it feel when you have an issue with somebody on the telephone or a business? I got to tell you, I'm going through, you've heard me talk on podcast. Sometimes I use the analogy of my car. So one of my cars cost a lot of money. It's old, by the way, years ago. And when you have one of those foreign cars and you take it to get serviced, there's a paranoia about you that you're going to get ripped off. Because it seems like there's a lot of people in that industry, the car repair industry, that want to rip you off. It's real. I'm not kidding. I'm sure some of you know this. And I thought I found my new best friend car auto place in the last 2 years, but they've changed. So it is a perpetual activity to maintain this level of high customer, high patient service in our case. But I know it sounds great to me, no matter who I'm speaking to. If the answer I get to something I don't like is no problem, consider it done, certainly. And I'm not getting that with my car people anymore. I'm getting excuses, and I don't like it. You hear me always talk about relationships. You always hear me talk about trust. So just briefly, trust comes to you, doctor, more than it does anybody else, that you will get the job done. You will. You know, I recently had a patient, and as you get older in your career, I think you do more of this. And I've watched this guy, I remember I've been practicing 40 years. I've watched him from his 40s to his 80s. And he had a lot of work over the years, and now I know he's starting to lose it medically, a little bit mentally. And he had a buccal filling, large, on a lower left molar. And for whatever reason, I did it at no cost. And it came out. I have no idea why. Maybe I stink at fillings anymore. I don't know. But I was embarrassed. Even though I charged nothing. It came back in. It failed again. Part of it came out again. I'm not kidding. So, no charge. Who cares? It's embarrassing. Your work has to work. By the way, I'm crowning it for him at no cost either. So trust comes from that you'll get the job done, whether you did it gratuitously, like I just mentioned to you, or whatever the case is, that your work works, that you'll be reasonably expedient, and they can count on you. If something goes wrong, you'll be honorable. I'm talking about a good quality patient, shows up for recall. You did something on them in a short amount of time, something went awry. You do enough work, things can go awry. And they can count on you to be honorable. That's where trust comes from. I'm going to take you back for a minute to the protocols that I spoke about in the last podcast. And I know I've talked about it, but I want to be clear that came from me realizing that random operational policy, meaning you don't have any blueprint for your office is how you do what. How do you do this or that? I'll give you examples in a second. That leads to random success. And that is why many of you end up with the good week, bad week syndrome. You know, when I say good week, bad week, I don't just mean monetarily. I mean, you left on Thursday or whatever your last day of work was, and you had a good week. You felt great about your work. You felt great about how the team up front handled things. I mean, isn't it like a small story that starts over every Monday morning? It is for me. It is. And sometimes the whole symphony is just a melody that I want to hear over and over again. And sometimes I'm embarrassed. Not often. I'm not, or I wouldn't be on this podcast with you. But you need to know that I have failure weeks too, where I'm just mortified. I can't believe that we handled something the way we handled it. Now, part of that is because I think I have a very large operation, and I probably need more managerial underneath me than I actually have. And that's not a criticism to my people. I think it's just a fact. We kind of manage by committee, to be honest with you. But some of the things I've done that will help you become not random, along with a protocol book. And you could start your own protocol book, by the way, or you could buy mine. But you could do your own. I'm serious. Not going to change my life by buying mine, but maybe that would be worth it to you and help it. Reach out to Beth and help you. But give you an example of some of these protocols and other things we did. The return to call within 1 hour protocol. That's what it's called. So it's a sheet of paper, neon orange, so it cannot be missed. Now, I want you to know that I put thought into everything that you hear me say. I absolutely, on purpose, made it a color that was almost offensive so I couldn't miss it as I walked near my front desk. If I see a neon orange slip, paper clipped to a chart, that means I need to read it real quick. And by the way, the team, the staff's job of this return to phone call in an hour is to provide ample information so I can give them a time or to give them direction as to where this patient should be seen. To be more specific, my crown is out protocol. That's a protocol in the book. What do you do with that at the front desk? My crown is out protocol. Well, I've learned over the years there's things I want to know is number one, is it my crown? I just want to know. Does it have a history of root canal and a post? What does the patient see? Today we have cell phones that can take pictures even. And yes, we ask the patient sometimes because we're really trying to be efficient with this patient. So we want to know as much information as we can. Is it a 20-year-old crown? Is it a patient that hasn't been in the last year? Because if it's that patient, I'm going to ask that they come in for a recall visit, and we'll do what we can given my examination when I look at the situation. But the worst thing you can do is see one of these slips, these neon orange slips, at 9 o'clock in the morning, and then it's still there at 4:30 or 5 and you forgot. Or my team is even taught to come back to me if I don't give them the answer within that hour for any reason. Like, it's annoying, but they'll say, and they know they can say no fear of communication to me because I taught them to do what I'm telling you. You didn't give me an answer on Mrs. Joseph yet, Doc. Where can I put her at? And if I look at that slip and it's incomplete, I'm not happy. I need your job, talking about the staff, is to put everything on there so I can make an intelligent decision. My crown is out protocol. Is there anything worse than that? There is. My crown is loose a little bit. To me, it's worse than it's out. And there's one worse than that. It's loose a little bit, not out, but it's attached to something else that's rock solid, that isn't moving at all. Now, you really want that patient? Let's say it's a driver patient. You've heard me talk about the 4 personalities. A driver doesn't want to sit in your chair very long. If somebody didn't know what to do and reacted to the driver patient that seems impatient, which they often do, on the telephone when they're calling to tell you a crown is out, or loose, but worse, it's loose, you better have ample time. I'm telling you, after 40 years, I'd rather stay late and make that patient my last patient of the day than sandwich that and deal with the angst it creates by making the driver patient wait until I can get to them. And then I have no idea what I'm getting into. Oh my Lord, I wouldn't want that. I'll leave you with one other thing that I think is worth you considering for 2021. And that's the cross-training protocol. It's a way to have a new employee without hiring one. So how often do you have this situation? Somebody calls up with an insurance question or some type of question about their account, a billing question, and that person is out of the office for whatever reason. And I know that the patient will probably not leave you just because you one time say, Nicole is out this week or she's out today, can she call you tomorrow? But in general, it's really good if you can somewhat train someone else at the front desk to learn, and you're paying them to train them, by the way, to learn enough about that job so not just one person knows the answer. I think that's a big deal. I think that would make any office instantly more efficient. It's true. I'm thinking as I'm talking to you, as I'm getting ready to close this week, we even had the $200 policy protocol. And that would be if a patient disputed something that was less than $200 on a bill, and it was a great patient. Now, we defined for the team up front what a great patient would be. Somebody with multiple family members, somebody who doesn't break appointments, someone that's invested in us before, in their mouth. That they had the latitude on their own to make a decision of how to handle a disgruntled patient. Just like the Ritz-Carlton has up to a $2,000 per guest policy. Well, we're a dentist and we don't have that kind of latitude of $2,000. But I got to tell you, it saved me a lot of patients over the years. Let me give you an example. A patient loses their insurance for whatever reason, and they want to know if there's any break you can give them. That's a little bit of a different path than I just gave you. And yes, my staff knows that they can give a 20% break on most items to that patient so that that patient wants to retain and be our patient still. These are just some things we've done over the years to empower the team. And by empowering the team, it's an educational empowerment. It's not a random thing. There's guidelines for them to follow. When somebody asks you for a financial break, if they're a quality patient, it took nerve for them and it took some humility for them to even ask you that. And for you to say, I'll have to check with the boss and then we'll call you back is even more humiliating. It's much more powerful if you can say, well, you know what, Mrs. Smith, we have a policy for that. And our policy is for our good quality patients that have come to us for years like you. And I know about you and I know about your family. So this is an easy one for me. I'm able to tell you this. Think about that for a minute. Now, what I'm telling you has nothing to do, right, with clinical dentistry. And it just shows you. I know you get this. I can feel it when I say it to you. That I don't ever remember anyone telling me in my 40 years that they gave a break to a family for this purpose and me saying that was a wrong move. Because they did follow the correct steps in assessing whether that's something we should do or not. Anyway, I hope this helps, guys. This is why I'm doing it. You can live the dream. You can be a private fee-for-service dentist or even a mix of that and mix in toxic insurance on your way to being a fee-for-service dentist, meaning you're getting paid the fees that you charge. I mean, what a ridiculous proposition, right? You can beat this. You can make this happen. Keep listening, and thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week on the Lionhearted Dentist.